Good morning, everybody. So I'm always fascinated that the flowers just growing naturally in our gardens are so perfectly colored that they complement each other. As we know, let me show you on the color wheel, the colors that go so well and beautifully together, a lot of times are those complementary colors, those contrasting colors. So for instance, red and green on the color wheel. And look at this flower I found. It's red and green. Look at that beautiful green center. And then the red, beautiful leaves. And they go just fantastic together. So let's take a moment and go ahead and paint this flower. And we're going to be using those complementary colors, red and green. I will be using my Mylang palette. I will share the colors I'm going to use with you. And let's go ahead and paint this beautiful little flower. Okay. All right, I'm going to use, the colors I'm going to use are, and let me just hold that up so you can see it. Look at how beautiful that rich red and that beautiful yellow green, even a little bit of yellow in it. I love that. And I love that this just naturally grows with these colors. The color palette is the Mylang Student Palette. I'm using my Artisto pads. You know, I absolutely love those. Perfect for beginners. Have that lovely, lovely texture. But if you have 140-pound cold press, that's typically what I'm going to be using. And the colors I'm going to be using today are this really pretty madder rose. And I'm going to be using that yellow green. I really suggest, if you haven't utilized these color diaries, they are amazing. I don't know what I'd do without them. I love them. Every time I get any new paints, I swatch them out on here. I put the name of the colors, any information I might want to know, and this is so useful. I'm always grabbing these when I get ready to paint. So for this one, I kind of held it up here, and that madder rose, or it could be called alizarin crimson. I think I called it madder rose. It's madder red. I'm using that one. You could even use that deep magenta. And then I'm going to use the yellow green and maybe just a tiny bit of the Cad Yellow. So this is something I use for all my paintings. I'm always swatching out my paintings, and this way I know the color that I want. Sometimes in the palette, they're a little bit hard to distinguish, so I like to be able to refer to my diary there. I'm just going to give these a quick little spray, get them activated. I'm using my 8 round. This is from my set. And let's go ahead and paint this little beauty. So the madder red is a beautiful color. Let me show you. Really, really pretty. Look at that, a really deep, rich red. Love it. And then the yellow green, which is another favorite in the Mylang palette of mine. Look at how beautiful those go together. I love those. I might add just a touch of the Sap Green for maybe the stem, or just to blend in with the leaves. But look at how beautiful those colors go together. Again, remembering they are opposite on the color wheel, and opposites are always really pretty together. So blue and orange, red violet and yellow green, green and red, beautiful colors. Interesting, if you mix those, be careful, because if you do mix those, they can create a very muted, shadowy color, which actually you can use to shadow your paintings that are using these colors. Just mix the contrasting or opposites on the color wheel, and you'll get these beautiful muted shadowy colors. All right, so I'm just going to clean my brush here, and I'm going to start with these petals. So let's get a little bit of that in my palette here. Ooh, I just love this red color. I think it's really pretty for fall. And go ahead and we'll just paint a few, or I'm going to paint a few of the petals here. So point, press, and down. Now you can do guidelines here if you want. Point, press, down, point, press, down. Making sure all of your petals go, the bottoms point back to your center of your flower. Point, press, down, point, press, just like that. We just keep going in a circle. Point, press, point, press. And I'll refer the one of the tutorials I have where you use guidelines. Point, press. No shame in using those guidelines. I use them still all the time. So we've got this beautiful red color. Now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to drop in a tiny bit of that yellow green. So let's put a little bit in my palette here. I don't want it to be too watery or it's really gonna spread. So maybe a little thicker, maybe 50% water, 50% pigment, and just dipping my brush in there. Although what I'm also going to do, because I don't want to go into my painting with too much water, is just tap it off. And then let's just go into the center there. Look how pretty. Oh my goodness. Who would have ever thought that green and that red could be so pretty together? I used to always think it was just something for Christmas, but look at how beautiful. Now, if it's mixing too much and I don't like that, just take your brush, rinse it, dab it off so it's a thirsty brush as they call it, and go in and pick that up. I don't ever mind. I kind of like that look when it spreads. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of that red back in there. I really do like that nice spread. And that's really just a personal preference. Some of you may like more crisp lines. I like when it's very washy and kind of organic. So there you go. And then let's go into the stem here. And I might just pick up a tiny bit of my Sap Green and let's paint that. There we go, just using the tip of my brush. And now I kind of cut off a lot of the little leaves. We've got one there. So point, press, point, press, point, press. It looks like it had some little uneven edges, which I love in my petals and my leaves. So point, press, point, press, point, press. There we go. And there you go. Now when this dries, and I actually can give it just a quick shot here. I can go in again there if you don't want it to spread too much, and I can pick up a little bit more of my green, and I'm going to make it kind of thick. So probably, like butter or sour cream. And now I can go back in and look at that. It's not going to spread all over. We could even add some of the yellow, the Cad Yellow, maybe around that. Look how pretty that is. Love it. So I'm using kind of a thicker mixture. And isn't that pretty? I could even go in now with, since this dried, now this is a little bit wet here, which is fine. Excuse me. And I could go in and again take that thicker mixture. So maybe 80% paint, 20% water. Just tap that off. And now I can go in here. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? Just to add Some interest there. I won't go into there because it's a little wet. Well, let's go in. You can see what it does. So it's spreading a bit because it is wet. Isn't that lovely? We could even go into the leaves because there is this is kind of dried out. It's been in my studio here for a bit, but it's got some really dark olivey greens in there. So let me just pick up some of that in my palette. I use that olive green a lot. So I usually have some in my palette, and I'm using that thicker mixture, so more like a sour cream type mixture. Tap it off if you feel like you have a lot of water in there. And then let's just go in and add some veins. Just using the tip of my brush. Look at that interest. Isn't that fun? This one's a little wet, but I'm going to go in there. And there you go. All right, I hope you play with this and maybe notice in your garden where Mother Nature is so perfect. She automatically is combining colors together like this, red and green, opposites on the color wheel. And look at how beautiful they are. All right, everybody, I hope that was fun and you give this a try, and I will see you soon. Happy painting, and thanks for being a part of our little community here.